Nice to see you. Okay, so you can turn off your camera if you're here with us live.
All right. Okay,
Welcome.
we're live. I think YouTube is working. There you go. YouTube is live as well now. Okay.
So we're live on Facebook and YouTube and Zoom. And there might be people watching this after, so welcome to you as well, whether you're here with us live. This is our second last live Monday Musings. So next week will be our last Monday Musings. So we want to thank those of you who have been with us on this journey for the last 2 years. And today is actually a really, really important topic. And so we're going to get into it in a minute. I just want to first introduce ourselves.
I'm Faison because I haven't forgotten my name yet. Sarah has.
Okay.
This happens a lot to Sarah.
It's been a big day, my friends. It's been a big day. Oh my goodness. Just a lot of things. When you like schedule an email, but then you pick the wrong date. Have you ever had that experience? So I scheduled an email, a very, very, very important email, to be sent out for next week, but it actually got sent out today by mistake. And so I'm kind of doing some firefighting around that.
So you're not perfect?
No.
You weren't perfect with your email?
I was never perfect. No. And I'm not trying to be. No longer trying to be perfect. That's what I've learned this month. Don't even try. It's not necessary. So yeah, just trying to like manage that mistake that I made.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's okay. Mistakes happen. So again, I'm Faison, co-founder at Dragonfly Academy. And this is...
And I'm Dr. Syra.
You can look at the camera.
And I'm Dr. Syra.
I know who you are.
And I'm a registered clinical counselor, a Canadian certified counselor and supervisor, and the clinical director at Dragonfly Wellness here in Salmon Arm, in the live location. And we also have our online academy, Dragonfly Academy, which we are co-founders of. And that's where for those who are not in the Salmon Arm area, that's how you're going to stay in touch with us after we end this formal Monday Musings weekly part. Is that's where we'll be putting out courses and trainings and things like that.
Educational
videos. And also YouTube is the other spot that we're going to be doing that. So keep following. If you haven't already like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, then you get those like notifications when we add stuff. So you can like and subscribe on YouTube, and that's the way that you'll keep in touch. Also, if you haven't already joined our mailing list, most Fridays I send out a newsletter. I didn't this Friday because I went hot tubbing instead for the whole day, and so I didn't get to the newsletter, so sorry about that. But generally on Fridays I send out a newsletter with some educational information, and maybe some information about anything that's anything that we're working on, or projects or things like that. So that's how you can stay in touch with us after we finish the weekly group. And just double check if you're not receiving those newsletters. You might have unsubscribed at some point in the past. And if you unsubscribed, then you're not getting stuff. So you'll have to re-add your...
Yeah, I think there's ways for... Yeah, just let us know. Send us a note. Or check your spam first. Might be kind of getting...
And if you ever want to reach us, we're at info@dragonflywellness.ca. That's how you reach us via email. info@dragonflywellness.ca. If you want to, when we say send us a note, that's where you send it to. Okay.
All right.
So let's get started on today's topic, which is
closings and endings.
Endings and closure.
Or endings and closure.
So
sure.
What we wanted to do today, because for a lot of our people that have been coming regularly, like this is an end, right? This is endings are not easy. And we wanted to talk to you a little bit about some of the different things that can happen unconsciously when something important in our life is coming to an end. And so you can think about, for those who are regulars at Monday Musings, this might be how you're feeling, like, oh, this thing is ending. It could be other things that are ending in your life. Maybe your job situation is changing, or maybe a relationship has ended, a friendship or a romantic relationship. Maybe a phase of life is ending, right? So like you're moving out of, like I have some people who I'm working with whose children are now adults, right? And so you're not parenting in the same way that you used to engage with parenting. So it's like a new phase of life. So the old phase is ending and the new phase is beginning. So endings are part of our experience. Often there'll be these unconscious things that we do to cope with the discomfort of endings. And that's what we wanted to talk about today, to kind of bring some of those things to light. So for those who are listening, who are note takers, and the students, the ones with the journals and the pens, you know who you are. This is one session that you'll want to take some notes on. So we'll try to go slow so you can capture the information. But remember, this is recorded and you can find it again on our YouTube channel. So you can also go back and rewatch if you missed something. In one of the concepts that we'll be sharing today.
And I think this is a good concept to reflect on when um, anything is ending, like Sarah is mentioning. I think this is important, when we were moving out from our old, the other city to here, we kind of had to go through this particular process as well, right? And so, yeah, it could be anything, relationships ending to, or changing to any like job situation, life situation. Um, yeah, I think it's important that we focus on how we end because, like last time we were talking about patterns showing up in our lives. This is where some of our old unconscious patterns show up.
Right.
Right, as when things are ending, that's where the patterns show up. So I um, one of my patterns, when things are ending, is I get really kind of um, frustrated and like like
We're
this
gonna talk
like
about it.
yeah,
Yeah.
like no, I mean I know we're gonna talk about it, but like one of the patterns is criticizing, right? Like so like this wasn't done right, that wasn't like that should have been better. All of those like the that criticism is my pattern that shows up when things are ending. So like I have to be consciously aware
Right.
to change that.
So this, what we're going to be sharing with you is based on two theories in psychology. So Carl Jung's work on the archetypes and the unconscious. So I want to talk a little bit about that, and then also attachment research. So let me explain like where it's coming from and the ideas behind it before we go into the specific ideas. So Carl Jung talked a lot about the unconscious, right? And so you've heard us probably use that word before. So let me explain it again. Did we talk about the tree here?
I think so, but we can talk
Maybe.
about
Okay,
it.
so basically the way that I like to explain the unconscious is like with the metaphor of a tree. Okay, so if you think about a tree, the conscious mind is like the leaves and the branches. So it's the part of the tree that you see, that you notice. It changes with the seasons of life. Our consciousness kind of changes and evolves and grows. That's the part that it's obvious and you see it and you pay attention to it. The subconscious is kind of like the trunk of the tree, right? So information comes through the roots, up the trunk, and into the branches, but nobody really pays attention to the trunk, right? Unless you're asking somebody to pay attention, we don't really notice the trunks of trees as much as we do the branches. And so the subconscious is the thing that's just under the surface, but if I were to bring your attention to it, you'd be able to notice it. So for example, your subconscious has picked up the doors and the windows in the room that you're in. And as soon as I say the doors and the windows in the room that you're in, you're able to access that. Like, oh, there's a door, there's a window, and I know where that is in the room. Because it's registered, but on a subtle level, right? So that's the subconscious mind. So things are registering on a subtle level. You can bring your awareness to it. An example of that is when you're driving, right? So there's a lot of things coming into your awareness, and it's just kind of coming. And unless something's like dangerous or something's like suddenly a fog comes in or suddenly somebody slams on their brakes, suddenly you're alert again, right? So it's there, it's available to you, but you're not really aware of it unless something brings your attention to it. So that's the subconscious, okay? Then there's what Carl Jung talked about, which is the unconscious, okay? The unconscious part of our mind is not really accessible to us. So it's like the roots under the ground of the tree roots. You can't really access the roots unless you try to do that in a really deliberate way. So there are some ways that we can access our unconscious thoughts, our unconscious beliefs. And one of those is through meditation. We can access unconscious material through meditation. And a way that all of us access our unconscious thoughts and material is through dreaming. So that's another place that unconscious material comes up to be worked through. We can access our unconscious. Sometimes if you're in crisis, you might have this access to unconscious material. But it's harder to get to because our system, our psyche actually creates barriers between our conscious mind and our unconscious mind. If those roots were above ground, they wouldn't get what they need from the soil, right? It's actually better for us to not have access on a day-to-day basis to our unconscious material because it's very powerful, very intense. There's maybe memories there, there's beliefs there, and it would be hard for us to constantly walk around in a state where we're always exposed to all of our unconscious material.
And overwhelming.
Very,
Like
very
just,
overwhelming.
yeah.
Yeah. So what? So there are certain practices that can help you get in touch with that unconscious material. Okay. And if we start exploring those, like therapy is a place where people often well, it depends on your therapist, but many therapists who work in that unconscious place can help their clients start to become more familiar and friendly with that unconscious material. And I actually talk about this in my first TED Talk, about facing your inner demons, because we all have these kind of shadow sides or shadow parts of ourselves that we don't really have access to unless we go looking, right? Unless we actually make a deliberate attempt to go looking. And it can be, and there's certain things you want to keep in mind before you go and do that dive into the unconscious. Then there's, Carl Jung takes it to the next level. So he says, just like there's the conscious mind, there's the subconscious, the unconscious, then there's what Carl Jung calls the collective unconscious. So that's basically the root system underground, right? Where we're all connected. And that's where he talks about archetypes, right? So these qualities of being that are universally accessible to us if we want to. So for example, just today I was talking to somebody about the teacher archetype, right? So each one of us can access what it feels like to be a teacher, to be knowledgeable and to be sharing knowledge and to be teaching others. We can all do it. We might not have a job of a teacher, like we might not be paid professionally to be a teacher, but we have access to that archetype of teacher. We also have access to dark archetypes such as murderer, right? So you might have never murdered a person, but perhaps you know what it feels like to be so angry that you're out of control and you can't control yourself, right? And somebody might take that to the extreme of taking another human life. They're that out of control, they're that raging, right? For example. So we have access to these unconscious archetypes. Now, what does this have to do with closing and endings? Every time we have an end, a better way to say it is this: one ending often activates all our other endings. Just like one loss will often activate all our other losses. Okay, so what happens is those losses and those endings that we never addressed because maybe we were too young, maybe we didn't know how, maybe it wasn't safe for us emotionally, maybe we were like just busy doing other things and didn't have, the bandwidth. All those times we didn't get a chance to process, those kind of go into our unconscious and they wait there until another ending comes up and then they're like, oh, now I can deal with this. So from a Jungian perspective, he says that there's behaviors that group members, especially when you're part of a group, that group members will start to exhibit these behaviors when we're coming to closing, because it'll bring up old stuff from our own family system, from our own community of origin, from our ancestral patterns. These things will start coming up as something we're really, really invested in moves to closing. So that's the archetype and the Carl Jung side of things. The attachment side of things is the other thing that informs these ideas. So in attachment work, what we're looking at is our earliest bonding with our most beloved caregivers. If that didn't happen in a congruent way, in a easy way where the adult and the child were in an attunement, they were available to each other, the adult was unstressed and available and had all their needs met, so they were able to really be. So basically, if there's any sort of attachment wounding that happened for you as a child, we have this unconscious tendency to project our parents onto any sort of figure that we give any sort of authority to in our life. Right? So, and that's why Faizan and I always say, like, we're just people. Like, we're not special. Like, don't put us on any sort of pedestals, or, but it's unconscious. Like, we can't help it. We do that with our teachers and our mentors and those who we look up to. We project some of our own attachment stuff onto the people who we look up to. And so again, when things are ending, those old experiences, those old original attachment wounds can start to come up unconsciously. And so we can act out these ways towards the people who are in charge, who we think are in charge. Okay, so that's the foundation of what we're talking about and why we're talking about this. And again, most of this happens so underground. People don't even know what's happening. And as we start giving you examples, you'll probably start saying, oh yeah, I totally do that. Or I have a friend who really does that. The idea is bringing it to consciousness means we can make a choice about it now. We're not just going to do this unconscious behavior. We're actually going to make a choice about what to do with this. So that all said, that's the background. That's where the theories are coming from. Let's dive in.
One question here.
Autopilot is subconscious. Yes, exactly. Being on autopilot, that excellent example. So autopilot is subconscious. Okay, some other thoughts here. Okay. Someone said, good to be here. Someone saying with ripping up the garden, right? Autopilot. Yeah. So just like weeding, right? You can kind of get into that rhythm, and it's
that's a pattern of
subconscious. Yeah. Okay. So someone was saying, I was going to comment, leaving my mother's home is like an ending. There's often a disruption, irritation. So I thought, okay, this is an unconscious pattern. Then I went, wow, this also would have significant grief, loss, or sadness for both my parents and me, as she had to send her kids away from safety and new beginnings in a different country. Wow. Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay, so this person is saying that maybe they were sent away from their family, from the family, and so this person's saying, okay, every time I remember this disruption, irritation, but thinking about their perspective, what would it have been like to have to send your children away from you? Yeah. Right? And the grief and the loss that but for a better life, right? So,
and sometimes to avoid feeling, because I'm assuming sending kids away would be such an emotional process, right? Like it would probably, at least me, knock me out for a while.
Right. If you felt all the feelings.
Yeah. So so rather than feel that, just say it's not a big deal.
Right. Or it's for their good.
Or it's for their, yeah.
It's because we love our children.
And both of those things can be true. Like rationally, yes, good to have kids in safety, but not to be with them is a huge loss, right? And so yeah, a lot of us actually don't deal with endings in that instance, right? Mm-hmm. Is that I'd rather not, because I can't deal with it.
Right.
Either I'm not strong enough.
I don't know how.
Yeah, it would be too much to feel.
The people around me are saying, what's the big deal? Everybody sends their kids away to school. Why are you so sensitive? Yeah. Right? So there's no room for that.
And then same thing from a child's perspective, right? Like for a child to be sent away, mm-hmm. Again, rather than feel, you can be irritated or whatnot, but like to actually feel that abandonment and anything that might be showing up there, loneliness, right? Anything that shows up, rather than feel that, just say, well, yeah, my parents did the best they could, because that's right. Like, again, rationally, it's true. Mm-hmm. All those things are true, except the feelings that haven't been processed. So the irritation.
Oh, here's a good one. Yeah. What about they're not in pain anymore? They're in a better place. Right. That's an example of what we try to tell ourselves to avoid feeling the actual pain of this loss.
Right.
Right.
And again, maybe true.
Yeah,
that they're not in pain. Maybe true that they're in a better place. And it's also true that I feel this loss.
That
it's
it hurts,
also true
that I miss them, right? Right.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So here's some things that we can do. And as we're going through them, see if you can apply them to yourself. See which ones are the ones that you do most frequently. So here we go. In no particular order, one of them is called leaving before leaving. Okay? So that's where... So we'll give the example here of Monday Musings, because that's kind of what we're talking about. So that's where you'll find yourself, like maybe you leave early today or next week. right? Or you're finding yourself distracted at the end, you're kind of doing other things, you're not really in it. So what you're doing is you're distancing yourself psychologically before the actual end, because that feels like it would be easier than dealing with the pain of, oh, this is over.
Yeah. Especially if somebody's been coming regularly,
Mm-hmm.
even semi-regularly, it's like, oh, okay, this is what I do Monday evenings or mornings, depending on where you are.
Mm-hmm.
And now to not have that, it's like, okay, how do I fill that time?
Right.
Right? So rather than deal with that, either I won't show up, like,
Well, I'll be
yeah,
distracted at the end. So
yeah,
I'm leaving. I'm still there. I'm still in the meeting, but I'm distracted. I've kind of left already,
right.
right?
And so if you think about this, if your work is ending, if you're leaving, either you were let go or you're being let go, or you have decided to leave. It's like I rather not deal with this, like, oh, this group of people I've been with for the last few years, whatever it was. Rather than deal with that loss, I just like maybe just disconnect from work.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Right.
I don't really need to work. They'll figure it out,
Yeah.
right? Like those types of thoughts start coming up, and again, this is not about right or wrong. This is just about noticing the pattern.
It's a way of coping. So there's
Yeah,
nothing wrong with it if you find yourself doing this. It's like just to observe, like, oh, interesting, I'm leaving before leaving.
yeah.
Right? We still have 15 minutes left, but I'm off, distracted doing other things. So that's the first one. Another one is leaving early. So actually not showing up for the last session, right? Or physically, like we'll have workshops where people will leave like 2 hours early. It's like it's a 5 day retreat, 4 day retreat, and they've made it all the way to the end, but they're going to leave 2 hours early because they missed that window of having to say goodbye, right? So that's something that, and again, it's something that we do unconsciously to avoid the pain of saying goodbye. So leaving early. So for those who've been coming regularly, I would highly encourage you to make it to next week, right? We know it's our last session. It's going to be a celebration session. We're going to be talking about next steps, your next steps, our next steps. But there will be this part of you that will say, it's over now. Why should I go? Right? So that's an unconscious way to manage. Like if you even look at how many people we have today, right? We have
Mhm.
about half as many people as what usually comes. So there's some people who have already left early, right? And they don't even know they're doing that. So that's another thing that we can do is leaving early. Another thing that we sometimes do is we minimize the experience. We minimize it. Can you maybe type these in the chat phase as we say them?
Mhm.
Yeah. So leaving before leaving, leaving early, and then minimizing the experience.
I can type while you talk.
Yeah, I guess you could. I'm just waiting, including you in the
Thank
journey.
you. Thank you.
So maybe we'll do these three and then stop for a bit of questions, yeah?
Yeah.
So minimizing the experience is about where you're like, well, it wasn't really that great. Like it was okay, I guess it was okay, but it wasn't really that great. And so what you're
Mhm.
trying to do is try to make it feel like it doesn't really matter that much, and that way it won't hurt as much when it's over. Like it won't affect me, right? So, it wasn't really that special. I mean, yeah, I mean, maybe they said some things or whatever, but it wasn't really great. I notice again that this happens after groups of people have spent time together in this sort of personal growth space. And we actually talked about this at Women on Wednesdays when we were ending that program about this is something we do that, like, oh, it's no big deal. Like, it wasn't really that important anyway, right? We do that. And that's a way, again, to not face the discomfort of this thing is ending and I'm going to miss it. I'd rather just say, well, I'm not really going to miss it because it wasn't really that special anyway. So let's do those three and stop here for questions. So leaving before leaving, leaving early, or minimizing the experience. Any questions or comments about those three from those who are here with us live and those visiting us after, please feel free to write in the chat afterwards. What are your thoughts around those three things? Can you think of an example where you might have done any of these, looking back like, oh, maybe that's what I was doing? Can you think of something for you?
Um, about with those three,
Mm-hmm.
probably minimizing the experience. Yeah.
Like you make it like it wasn't that important.
Yeah, like especially remember when I left Chicago to move to
Mm.
Canada. I
Mm-hmm.
was like, oh yeah, it was okay. Wasn't that? it was an experience there. Now I'm gonna go try new things, and not actually talk about how
You're gonna
like
miss
that was
it.
my home, right? Like that's kind of where I grew up. So, so
So
yeah,
you're home.
huh? I know, but like born somewhere else, but like that's where there are these core memories, right?
Right.
But like instead of even acknowledging the friends that I won't have anymore, right? Like all of those things that kind of come up. So yeah,
Minimizing. So
yeah,
someone's saying, when I heard Monday Musings was ending, I prioritized to make sure I attended these sessions to maximize the opportunity. And that's like that's a really deliberate decision, right? To
hmm,
say, okay, I know this is ending. How do I make sure that I get there for the sessions that are remaining, right? But you may find from now until next week, or even next, the first week that you don't have Monday Musings, you may find some of this grief stuff coming up. So we wanted to address that now.
hmm,
So if it does come up, you're not like, what's wrong with me? It's like, oh, okay, this was something important and part of my routine, and now it's not there, and that's hard,
right.
right? So let's do the next three. So
If you have questions as they come up, just comments or questions, please send them while we're speaking.
okay, here's a good one. This is so true and such an embarrassing situation. Okay, here we go. Thank you for your honesty. A group of 10 going to the airport to catch our respective flights. And whilst ordering food, one of them said, nothing for me, and 9 coffees came up. And the 10th one says, I can only see 9 coffees on the table. Did you not order for me? Oh my God, the table went quiet. It must have been difficult. As an after experience, how will he face the group when they meet again? What are your thoughts? So that we're coming to that. We're going to come to that's actually a strategy, an unconscious strategy that's used there. So I'm going to tell me when we get there if you can identify it, okay? So we'll get there. So the next one is called promise of friendship. So that's where, and this happens often in like in-person groups where people have been working, coming together for a certain number of weeks or months or even years, and then the group is ending, and somebody's trying to um, set up a reunion, right? Or they kind of really have that kind of needy, clingy vibe of like, oh, but we can be friends, or maybe we can do like, our own version of Monday Musings, or maybe we can, and they're trying to like kind of
They create a Facebook page and like they create like groups, WhatsApp group, like anything,
right.
like just
Just to
say let
keep
me
it
stay in
going,
touch.
right?
Yeah.
And this is actually coming up for us in Chai and Chat because our group is ending in June. But what's different, so they're actually talking about doing a different kind of group altogether, which is a peer support group.
Mm.
So for those who've never made it to Chai and Chat but have symptoms of depression or anxiety, this is your chance because I'm closing at the end of June. But beyond June, the people who have been coming regularly have decided to do a different sort of gathering, right? So they're not trying to replicate. That's really important, right? Because we'll want to try to like replicate it or keep it going a little bit longer, or let's be friends. And people who drift away, it's like let them drift away, right? They got what they needed from that experience. There may be a few people who want to continue and do something different. Absolutely go for that, but don't do this promise of friendship thing where it's like, oh, forever and ever. And just that's important because there's that temptation to like not want it to end. And one place that you can maybe, if you've ever been to like a summer camp or like a family reunion or something where a group of people is together really intensely for a period of time and then they all go back into their lives, this is often where a promise of friendship shows up,
Mm-hmm.
right? People try to stay connected, but they're not really doing it because they actually had a relationship. They're doing it to replicate the experience and keep the experience going longer rather than building something new with these people moving
Mm-hmm.
forward. So that's the promise of friendship. Then there is the first to leave and the last to leave. So these are two different strategies. Okay. So the first to leave is that first person that signs off or leaves the room as soon as the thing is done. Like they're out the door. They're not saying goodbye to anyone. They're just gone. And again, to avoid the discomfort of saying goodbye. And then there's the opposite of that, which is the last to leave. And that's the person who, when we have like in-person workshops, they'll like hang around, they'll help with the takedown, they're lingering around, they're just not leaving. They're just like waiting and they just don't want it to be over and they don't want to leave the energy. So those are both ways of kind of avoiding that the end,
Mm.
right? So the first to leave or the last to leave. And it's funny when we would joke a lot because when we would have, there was a time when we were in a sort of a leadership position at our place of worship, and so once a month we'd have this particular gathering, and we were in charge of different things for that gathering. For those who are a part of our community, Panch Barsal, right? So we were Panch Barsal Mukhi, and on those days when it was Panch Barsal, we would close out Kanye, like we'd be the last people to leave, right? The last people to leave, but that was part of our position. But if we were the last people to leave every single week, like it's hard on the leadership team when there's like one family that's just staying and not saying to be helpful, but just dragging and dragging and dragging because they don't want the thing to be over and they don't want to go home, right? So that last to leave can be really hard on the facilitators or the people in charge because they're like, I know for our in-person meetings, there's always a team meeting after, right? So I'll do my workshop and then afterwards I'm meeting with the team. And so if the participants are lingering, it's like that much longer before we have our meeting and then take the takedown and all of that. So
Yeah. And it's about, again, it's not that it's not okay to leave last. That's not the issue. It's just why are you trying to like leave last? Like, are you consciously or unconsciously trying
stretching
to
it.
stretch that experience? So you might notice little kids, right, when they're really into an event, like they won't, like, you remember like our kids are like, they would just be running around like, no, I don't want to leave now, like
Right.
I'm getting to run around, I don't get to run around at home, duh. Like, no, we need to go, like it's done. But that piece about, this is the experience, I want to just keep on experiencing it, like at some point it's got to end.
Right.
Now with kids, obviously that's, it's understood, like they just don't know how to deal with it. But it's for us, it's to be able to say, wait, what am I trying to do here?
Am I trying to extend this
Yeah.
experience, right? And so these you can use for any endings in your life. So use these ideas and become like, if you want to, you can bring yourself into more awareness and consciousness. Like, oh, I'm doing that last to leave thing right now.
Hmm.
Let me look around. Let me read the room. Everybody's gone, and I'm just here with the facilitator. Maybe it's time for me to go. Right? Okay. So any questions about first to leave, last to leave, or the promise of friendship? Any questions about that or comments about that? I had a period where I was the first to leave person, right? Where I would just be like right out the door, not saying goodbye to anyone, just out of there. And then I learned about learned about this. Like, oh, wait a minute, why am I doing that? Like, say goodbye to a few people before you go.
Yeah.
Okay, so so far, can we read the whole list again from the beginning? So we have leaving before leaving, which is being distracted, right? And not really concluding the event. Leaving early, so not even showing up for the last event. Minimizing the experience, promise of friendship, first to leave, and last to leave. So here's the next three. Ready? Make up a fight. So remember that example that we gave about the coffee guy who didn't get his coffee? Like nothing for me and then feeling upset that they didn't get their coffee. That's called making up a fight. So this is where we find we find a reason to get angry, and that proves to us that nobody values me in this group. See, I don't even fit here. They don't even care about me. They didn't even get me the coffee. It's an unconscious coping with ending. Make a fight.
And this sometimes happens when you're visiting family,
Oh my gosh.
and kind of the last day turns out like, why are we fighting? Like, or it just becomes like there's a lot of irritation. Maybe, and it depends on how you fight as a family. Some families fight really physically, outwardly, not physically, hopefully, but outwardly, and then some are like internal, like they're just
Passive.
irritated, very passive,
Right.
with that. So yeah.
So making up a fight, that's another way that we unconsciously cope with endings. Also, getting busy. So this is the person who they want to help with takedown. They want to, and Faison, this is one of Faison's specialties is getting busy, right? Like being helpful and like getting busy. And so again, in that helpfulness, people are leaving and you're not actually saying goodbye to them. You're just getting busy so you don't have to say goodbye to them, right?
Yeah.
Getting busy.
That's definitely my specialty. Yeah, and part of it is just, again, like, being the nice guy, and also, right, like, and trying to be helpful, but in that sense, not actually, like you said,
Saying
not
goodbye.
actually connecting,
Right.
right? Like not valuing that connection, not honoring that connection that we had with people. And I, last year I went to a men's group,
Mm-hmm.
and
Oh yeah.
and I was ready again to just jump in, and like at the end, like there was like basically we went camping,
Right.
and so there's all this material that has to be put back into the truck, and like so I just started like cleaning dishes, and I'm like, what am I doing? There's like 13 other people here. I'm like, so I actually went and like sat by the lake for like 20 minutes, talked to another man like really deeply,
Mm-hmm.
and then kind of went and did kind of the last kind of cleaning that needed to happen, but everybody else took it. It was just like,
Other people will step
oh
in,
yeah, other
right?
people will
And
step
again,
in, but
it's
it's
not that
yeah,
you can't help at the end of an
yeah,
event,
yeah,
but the point is, am I doing this to avoid connecting and saying
yeah,
goodbye and actually feeling the end,
yeah.
right? So someone's asking a question regarding making up a fight. Is it generally not feeling valued as a person? Can you think of any other underlying things occurring? Yeah, so it's often that it's a way of saying, see, nobody even cares about me, or they don't really get
Yeah,
me.
and part of the value or being understood sometimes is also, can't you read my mind? Like, I didn't order that. I didn't want to order anything, but
But you know I love coffee, so if
yeah.
you're gonna get a coffee
Or
out
if
to
everybody's drinking coffee, what am I gonna do? Like, why would you do? But it's again, it's like it's reading my mind
they're
to,
laughing.
yeah. But it's part of it is that, right? Like sometimes it comes down to how do we feel valued,
Mm-hmm.
and all of us feel valued when we're heard, right? Like that somebody will look out for me,
Mm-hmm.
and part of it is again it's that's lack of responsibility, lack of accountability. You realize like, wait, I did say no,
Right.
right? But rather than dealing with that, say, oh wait, 9 people said yes, and I'm the only one
Right,
that's
that I'm
that
different.
I'm
I
the
don't fit
outsider.
here. I'm
Yeah,
making so I'm isolated. That's another one. We'll
so
get
I
to
don't
that
want to.
one.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah,
this was making a fight. That's the piece about getting angry about where's mine, right?
yeah.
So here's the next one. We have making a fight, getting busy, and the third one is what's called spotlight on me. Spotlight on me. So that's the individual person in a in-person setting who wants to just monopolize the facilitator's time now at the end. There's like, I want to talk to you privately, and other people are trying to say goodbye, but I'm going to monopolize your time now and pay attention to me here
Hmm.
at the end, right?
Yeah.
So that's something that we can do again unconsciously is I'm going to just zone, I'm going to hone in on the leader, and I'm going to make sure that the leader pays attention to me. Even though they're trying to leave and things are wrapping up and other people are trying to say goodbye, I want it to be about me.
Hmm.
Spotlight on me. And it's a way of just like again dragging out that feeling. And another thing that often people do in group workshops is that they will wait until the last second before they share their big thing,
Mm.
right? So like the whole workshop's happened. We're 4 days later, and now in the last session, any questions? And then the like, can I just ask you about this thing? And it's like a whole another 3 days would need to be used to manage that question, right? So waiting till the end and then spotlight on me. That's another unconscious strategy that we use. So making up a fight, getting busy, spotlight on me. Any questions about those? Any further thoughts about those?
No, I don't know about the spotlight on me. I'm not familiar with that one, but or haven't really experienced it.
Have you had participant? You've had participants do that too
Yeah,
when
yeah,
you've been a
and,
facilitator.
and I'm just a jerk, I guess. I was like, yeah, hold on.
Say bye to the next people.
uh,
But again, this can even happen at family gatherings, right? So yeah, someone's asking what's another example in a different setting. So for example, it's like, when, say if there's like a big family gathering, right? And a group of people is leaving at the same time, like say 5 people are leaving on the same time, and that one person just wants to talk to the host while other people are trying to leave, and they don't actually let the host say goodbye properly to everyone else. They're just like, right, and they're kind of monopolizing the host time. That's
mm,
another way that we do that. Spotlight on me. I want you to pay attention to me at the end and make me feel
yeah.
important.
Or like you're leaving and they're like, hey, can you help me with this? And like, like right? Like, I still need to finish my packing while other people are leaving. Like, come help me pack with the host. You're like, wait, what? Uh, so yeah, that can show up
Yeah, so
sometimes.
that's
Yeah.
another context where we might do that is, or we might do it again in any sort of gathering, like even a religious gathering, right? Where it's like, okay, it's everybody's going, and now you're going to monopolize the leader for the last 20 minutes. When you could have talked to them earlier, but you chose not to. You chose to wait right till the end until they're it's kind of inconvenient now for
Mm-hmm.
them to be with you, but you're not really observing that because you're in your own neediness of I need their attention now, right? So again, it's about bringing consciousness of what am I doing here? Am I doing that spotlight on me thing, or what's happening? And it might not be. It might just be, oh, this is the right moment to talk. But does it mean other people get left? Like, are you taking away from what else is happening in the space because you're making it all about you? And that's the child part of us, right?
Mm-hmm.
That wants to be special and wants it to be all about us. So that's spotlight on me. Okay, ready for the next three? Someone's saying, "Oh, I think I do that with my hubby when he has to leave for work." I think I do too.
Mm-hmm.
I know, right? But it's the ending. It's like, oh, this morning time that we have together is ending, and I just don't. Can you just a little bit longer? Spotlight on me. Just pay attention to me. Yes, but
I don't know how many buses I've missed in my life because of
so then again, but it's
that.
unconscious, right? And so if you were like, oh, oops, I'm doing that spotlight on me thing, maybe I can actually, when I do have access to him and he's not rushing out somewhere, am I taking advantage of that time?
Mm-hmm.
Or am I just like on my phone in another room while he's available, and then when he's not available, I'm rushing out, right? So just to be aware. Someone's saying these make, so the person who asked about the coffee thing, they said these make so much sense. Now I feel bad for him. How does one cope with it? The other part of the situation, how does he cope when meeting the same group again? Let's get back to that as we finish up these next few. Yeah, because there's a few others that he might, I mean, we don't know, he's not here, so we can't read his mind, but you or I might do one of these others in addition. So here's the next one. So make a fight, getting busy, spotlight on me. So here's the next three. One more problem. One more problem. So this is kind of what I was saying before, like, I want to just add one more thing, and it's like there's not enough room now to resolve that, but you're gonna do one more problem before we leave, and now everybody has to stay longer to make sure that you're okay. Or if they don't stay longer, you tell yourself, see, they don't even care about me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So we see this in therapy all the time. We call it the door handle, the doorknob problem. So they're like hand on the doorknob, leaving the room, and they'll just like drop something. We don't have room to deal with that now, right? But they've like just thrown it, and it's like, oh, now what do we do? We just wait for a week until we can talk about that, right? And it comes from a place of being afraid, right? And from not quite having enough courage to like go for it. We wait until it's too late to really do anything about it, and now I'm gonna say
Mm-hmm.
something, right?
Yeah.
That's the one more
And in
problem.
certain instances, like meetings, when certain there are meetings happening, and like I know I've asked people, hey, anything coming up? No, no, no. Okay, like make sure you send the agenda ahead of time if you need to talk about anything. Sure,
Right.
yeah, no, no, we don't need to talk about anything. And
We're saying goodbye.
we're finishing the meetings. Like, wait, we didn't talk about X,
This
Y,
thing.
Z. Like, wait,
You could have
but
said that an hour
yeah,
ago.
now either we gotta keep the meeting going, which a lot of people can't keep. Right? You know, it's like it's that piece about being able to speak up and saying whatever I need is important. And sometimes this piece also comes from, oh, actually, what I need to say is not really that important. I don't feel important, whatever it might be. Like it's coming from that place until it becomes overwhelming. Like, wait, I actually can't move forward until this question's answered
Right.
in the case of that meeting, right? So,
So the thing under the one more problem is, again, when we're used to not being heard, then we almost make it impossible for other people to give us what we need, because now you're framing it in a context that's impossible for the people to help you
mm-hmm.
through, because now there's no more time. Time's run out, right? So that's the one more problem. Can you scroll down? I have a list here so that I don't forget any of them. Is there more? Is that the last three? Yeah, okay. So one more problem. The next one, and this is also something for the coffee example that you gave, is no one cares. So here's where, in the closing phase, as things are shutting down, we find an example to show us that, see, nobody cares about me. I didn't matter to the group. I don't fit, I don't belong, I don't matter. We find examples to prove that to ourselves in right at the end of the group experience. So, like, for example, if you were to write something in the chat and we missed it and we didn't speak it, you could take that back and say, oh, see, they don't even care about me. I'm not important. I've been coming here for 2 years and they didn't even read my comment. Right? So we
which are some feedback we've received.
right? It's like, sorry, it scrolls fast, man. Can't keep track of all the right. But you take it personally. Like, see, no one cares. I've made a story that nobody cares.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, the all, like, especially this one, no one cares. One more problem is this pattern of I'm never heard.
Mm-hmm.
I never feel heard, right? And that nobody really values me enough to take my opinion,
Right.
whatever the opinion may be, right? So, so that's a big one, yeah.
And here's the last one. The last and our least favorite. Are you ready? It's called demonizing the leader. So that's where you're working, you're sitting through your last couple of sessions and you're like, they're not, I don't know if they really know what they're talking about. Well, it's not really fair, blah, blah. Like, you start making a story about the facilitator or the leader that they're not quite what you thought they were. And so maybe this was kind of a waste of time anyway, or they've changed. They've really changed. They don't really care about the same things that they used to. And so, yeah.
That
So,
one we've received as well.
right, but it's again, it's an unconscious way that we cope with, rather than saying, I'm really gonna miss them, or him or her or this leader. We say, no, they're not that special anyway. They have all these problems, they do these things wrong.
And part of they're not that special. It's true.
Yeah.
People aren't that special. That's okay. That the specialness is not the
no, but
thing.
it's like, I don't like this or that. Like, seeing
Right.
flaws, starting to notice their flaws, and the flaws that you might have noticed before and weren't a big deal to you,
Yeah.
but now suddenly you're like, oh, and then they talk really fast or whatever. Like, whatever things you start to notice that piss you off about your leaders, that's an unconscious projection. It's easier to feel annoyed at the leader than to feel the sadness that this thing is ending.
Right. And this also comes up. So there's two places, right? Like two patterns that show up. This is about our issues with our parents or parent figures, as well as our sense of confidence as well. That to say, oh, I don't think I can do this alone. So if they've left me here to suffer on my own,
right,
and not be able to move forward. So I think sometimes it's like, we talk about when when we let go of one teacher, another shows up.
Right.
Yeah. So in your instance, if you've been showing up regularly, as facilitators, you'll find other places where you can plug in and get some of this need filled, where you can reflect on your life and how you're progressing in your life. So this isn't the only place, but a lot of people, because they don't want to, this has become familiar. They don't want to leave this to go somewhere else, because wait, I have to do that step. That next step, I have to do it alone. Right? And the truth is, you've always had to do it alone. Right? We're not going to live your lives. We haven't been living your lives for the last 2 years. We've barely been able to live our own. and so part of it is just being able to let go and trust that you are more than enough. You are powerful. You have that ability to kind of move forward.
And you'll attract the next teacher or mentor or guide.
Yeah.
Right? And maybe that's us in a different form, and maybe that's others as well. Right? So it doesn't have to be the end of your growth and your learning because the leader is flawed. And we are flawed. And I hope you know how flawed we are. We tell you all the time, right? So someone's saying that must be really tough on you both. How do you handle it? and then maybe not. Is it tough? I think
I
because
think in
we,
the beginning, when
yeah,
we used to get nice feedback, it used to. I think we used to take it personally. We've had to do our own work, right? To say we're doing this for our own benefit.
someone's saying, has it been 2 years or has it been since 2020? So 2020, we started Women on Wednesdays.
Yeah, you've
So
been.
I did that for 2 years until 2022. And then when that ended, then we shifted here so that there would be a place for people to land, to Monday Musings, and that was open to men and women. So it's been 4 years that I've been doing some version of this with different people in the community.
We start
Wow.
2021.
Women on Wednesdays?
No, this because I think we did. We started this 2021 because yeah, we started this
I
2021
don't
May.
know.
Anyways, it's been two,
Two,
three
three
years.
years, something like that.
It's been enough. We've lost count as you can see, but either way, I think where how we've dealt with it is we don't take it personal,
Right.
right? And so there's a couple of things. There was that question about feeling sad for that person who didn't order the coffee, and how
How did they go back to the group?
first of all, how do I cope with it? The way to cope with things is to allow other people to make mistakes, allow other people to have flaws, which means you have to let go and you have to forgive and say, this story does not make them, right? Like this one story
It's not their whole life
is not
story.
their full story,
Right.
right? And this is not them. They may, in the back of their mind, they maybe have been dealing with some other situation that we don't know about. Who knows?
And they may
Whatever.
not even remember the coffee, or maybe they remember it. We
Yeah.
don't know, right?
Yeah. And to be able to say, you know what, I'm going to let go of this story. So I think that's one. How does that person cope with it? If they really want to cope with it, I mean, it comes down to accountability and to say, hey, I know I made it all uncomfortable. I have to apologize if they want to do it. But you can't force them, hey, you really need to cope with it. They might not even remember it.
Right.
Right? And it's so
And
I
then,
think
and
it's
the other
yeah.
side of it, like, so if I was, say, if I was one of those 9 people or the 10 people, and that happened, right? And this person's like, well, where's mine? And I felt uncomfortable, then I would really want to look at I have myself this thing about nobody should be unhappy, right? If people are unhappy, then I get uncomfortable, and so I would actually work on that piece in me. Is like, why is it so important to me that everybody feels okay and we can never have awkward emotions in a group? Like that's something to look at, Syra. But okay, there was an awkward moment. Awkward moments happen in human encounters, and that's okay, right? It doesn't have to
Yeah.
be always everything butterflies and rainbows. It can be uncomfortable, and I can live through that.
Yeah.
Right? I can do that uncomfortable. Can I tell you what I did on Friday? Speaking of uncomfortable, hopefully I've planted a seed for somebody in this room. Okay. So I went to a hot tub, a hot springs with like the minerals and everything. And I've been to those before and I really enjoy that. But I went with a friend who does the cold plunge. So little did I know, never noticed it in my life. At a lot of these hot tub places, there'll be like a tiny little
Really,
pool.
you haven't noticed it when I say, hey, let's go
I
in there?
ignore that because I'm like, I don't know why anybody would get into cold
Ignores it
water.
because it's coming from Faison.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have to hear things in other people's voices.
Sometimes. A lot
Most
of
of the
times.
time.
Most of the times, yeah.
Yeah, I know. So anyway, despite the fact that my husband has been telling me for many years, it has not registered, right? So we go to this hot springs, it's outside, we take a ferry to get just such a beautiful experience. We get in, and then she tells me she's going to go do the cold plunge, and I'm like, that's crazy. I don't do cold. I don't even know why anybody would do that. And I would on and on and on about how I just don't do that. And then she went in, and then she came back in, and I was like, oh, okay. And then I thought about it. Now it's getting hotter and hotter and hotter in the hot tub. It's really hot in the hot tub. And I thought, you know what? Let me try it. Because 25 years ago, 20? Something like that. I did this cold plunge thing with a girlfriend of mine when we were backpacking through Europe. She's Swedish. And she has, they have this little family cabin, like a log cabin, like wood stove. And she's Swedish, and in Sweden there's like the sauna, cold plunges, like culturally just part of what they do. And so she taught me how to do it. So we went to her little sauna, and then there's a pond in the back, and we broke ice in the broke a hole in the ice in the pond, and then we went from the sauna to the plunge to the sauna. But it's 20 years ago, and I don't remember it, and I just remember being really like in my 20s. So I was like, I'm too old for that. But I I did it. I went into the cold plunge, and it was such a profound experience for me, because Carrie, the person who I went with, she said, I'm like, I'll do it if you coach me. So she's like, okay. So she walks in first, and then we got in, and I wanted to get right out because it was really cold. And she's like, sit. She's like, sit, stay, breathe, just breathe. And so first I worked on regulating my breathing, because I got in, I was like, it's so cold, it's so cold. And she's like, ah. And so then I sat with it. And so I sat for 1 whole minute in the cold water, and then went back into the hot tub. And then in the hot tub, it was a different sensation on my whole body. And I was like, whoa. And then I did it again for 2 minutes. And then I did it again for 3.5 minutes. 3 cold plunges. It was not Wim Hof. Like, I wasn't trying to do the Wim Hof thing, but yeah, it was just like, just breathe, right? So Wim Hof,
you were talking about the reason she's talking about this, to get back to
there was a reason.
Yeah. Is to talk about the
sitting in the discomfort, right? Yeah. And so that's what I got out of that experience, was I can be really uncomfortable and still okay.
Yeah.
Right? Like, my physical body can be I can be choosing to put my physical body in this really uncomfortable situation, and I'm still okay. And that was really good for me mentally, to remember that about myself.
And remember, crisis, discomfort, whatever you call it, allows us the opportunity to see where we're at and where we need to grow, and to actually grow, right? Because without it, oh yeah, I'm a perfect, right? Like, I thought I was such a patient person until we had our first child, who didn't go to sleep for 2.5 years. And I realized how impatient I am, right? But it's like, the crisis actually is like, whoa, I'm
shows you something about yourself, right?
And my patience was at a very exterior level, but internally, the noise in my head was so loud. I was moving so fast and expecting so much out of other people. Externally, yeah, okay, but like, it wasn't that I was patient. I was actually I didn't have any patience. I'm growing into it because a crisis created an opportunity for me to grow, right? So these opportunities of discomfort, where somebody's like, hey, you didn't order a coffee for me?
We all feel uncomfortable from it.
Yeah, we all feel uncomfortable, and say, what does it say about me? If you can be like, no, I didn't. Whoops. Just let it go in that moment. Sure, you've grown. But if not, there's an opportunity to grow. Say, wow, why do I want people to like me? Why do I always want people to have everything kind of be perfect? Right? Otherwise, if it's not perfect, then there's something wrong. So all of these things that come up, I think, are important for us, right?
So let's read through the list one more time before we close. Okay, so summary: leaving before leaving.
Let me see if I can maybe type it into.
But now I can't read the list because you just moved the thing. Thank you. Thank you. Leaving before leaving, leaving early, minimizing the experience, promise of friendship.
Whoops.
Too fast, see?
All right.
See, I told you. I have to say it slowly so you can type. There's a reason for my leaving before leaving, leaving early, minimizing the experience, promise of friendship, first to leave, last to leave, make up a fight, getting busy, spotlight on me, one more problem, no one cares, and demonizing the leader. So hopefully that was helpful. That person with the coffee thing said thank you, and yes, all the points, lots of reflection on both sides and perspectives. Great. So thank you everyone for being here with us for Monday Musings. We hope this was helpful for you as you think about endings and closure for this part of your journey with Monday Musings. We'll be here next week for our final session. So anybody you know who's been coming, because I guess some people don't know that we're ending. So please spread the word if you know people who have been coming, that next week will be our last session. We'll also put it in the newsletter. And we'll see you.
Well, let me stop streaming. So
sure.
Bye to the Facebook and the YouTube world. Well, yeah.